Theodore Roosevelt once said, "The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, and spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best, if he wins, knows the thrills of high achievement, and if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat."
Boom. Oh my God, we're live.
We're live?
Yep.
Awesome.
You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Yeah, it's my first podcast in 2025. My friend Marissa, right? We met at the gym. I guess has it been like 2 years ago, 3 years ago,
More than that now. It was 2020
2020.
during COVID.
How did we become friends, me, you, and Megan?
So that's interesting. I was more fit, right? And I remember you came up to me and you called me G.I. Jane.
I said that?
Yeah. You said, "What are you, G.I. Jane?" I think it was rope climbs that day. And you were like, kind of busting my balls. And I don't know. I like immediately was drawn to you and Meg.
Yeah.
You guys were fit, fun. And I think we did a class together. It was like a 4:30 class. It was hot out. And you were busting my balls. I was like kind of embarrassed, but it was like fun. It was like backhanded compliments. So that's like what was good about it.
Well, no one really like, even Meg tells me all the time, like no one knows how to take you or me. You know what I mean? No one knows how to take me.
Well, no.
At first, because like I think everything's a fucking joke.
Right. And you came to the gym and you just started like spitting.
Frankie. And I wasn't even in shape when I got there. I was just talking shit anyway.
I don't know. You were pretty in shape. People were like, you know, and then you came in, you acted like you owned the gym. And then, you know, I like that, like,
that attitude.
confidence,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I was immediately drawn to you guys. And then I think Bucky, you were like ragging with him, and Bucky and I were friends.
Mm-hmm.
And it all just kind of like trickled down from there.
Yeah, it's definitely been like it's funny. We go from being perfect strangers to flying to Austria for your wedding.
I know.
Is that crazy? We were happy to, like, so we were making a joke, like, I think Marissa just invited us so I can do her hair.
Well, no, but how perfect does that work out?
It works out. It works out.
But, you know, Megan's always talking about, you know, I've gotten close with Megan over
You guys
the
are tight.
years. Yeah. And the best thing about Megan is that she's like a great friend. She's like a ride or die. Mm-hmm. She has your back, you know, won't ever like talk ill about you, keeps anything you say in confidence.
Definitely.
And then, but she's funny. Mm-hmm. And, you know, she has interests, hobbies. She comes from a good family. And I was like, this chick is awesome.
She is awesome.
So the best thing about the wedding was... What is a little tit tat?
Yeah.
I know. The best thing about Megan was that she does my hair, and you know, we have long conversations in her chair, and then she's always talking about traveling, and she's, you know, she always wants to do these things, and I'm like, why don't we book a vacation together? And then I was thinking, I was like, I don't know, Megan and Anthony like really like those like resort vacations, laying on a beach, being tan, and I'm like, I don't know if they'll go for it. So when I proposed it to Megan, I was actually nervous.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the hell is she gonna want to go to Austria for? Because when Dan had originally told me Austria, I'm like, what the hell's in Austria? It's
So
not one of
you've
those-
never been?
So we just previously
That's
went.
where you were at, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then what the hell's in Austria? It's like the most beautiful country.
The pictures he sends are like fucking amazing. So a buddy of mine I used to work with, I guess there's like a big snowboarding area there.
Yeah.
So he does like these long vacations by himself and just goes snowboarding in like places like Austria. So when I told him I was going, He said, make sure you let me know where. It's similar to Dan. Like, I'll tell you what to do, what, all these cool things. But
you know who's also going is Joe Lopez and
I know.
Perry. They're
I
going to
know.
Switzerland. They're going to do the whole snowboarding thing. And that's the cool thing about like over there is that depending on the time of the year that you go, it's a totally different experience.
Okay.
So
is it summertime there too when we go, or is it different?
So
there?
it's winter now. Like they have winter now, but their winters are much more colder.
Okay.
And their summers are about ours. I think less humidity, but the awesome thing is that it's not built up like over here.
Yeah.
You're going over there and it's just you step outside, the air is so crisp, and you are like this little minuscule like molecular cell, and this world is just encapsulating you.
I get what you're saying. It's funny that when Megan texted me about Austria, I was immediately like, fucking yeah, let's do it. When I got sober, I made it like, I just don't want to go back to fucking Mexico.
Well, that was the thing.
Yeah, I refused to, like, we probably could have went in the past 14 months, and I'm like, I just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I didn't really want to leave the country. Like, I didn't golf once last year because I didn't want to break my routine with the gym and the meetings. I was like, I just don't want to do it. So, like, I was like, I just don't want to leave the country because I want to be able to make a meeting.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I talked to someone about Austria, and like, there's a way to find meetings. And it's funny you mentioned Dan, like, brought that up. Like,
oh, yeah.
It's not something I'll do every day, but like to go maybe twice in 10 days in Austria, I think is a home run.
Well, I think checking out a meeting in any country you go
It's cool.
to
Yeah.
is an experience.
My sponsor owns like call centers throughout the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's in like India. I just know he was just in India. So he goes he travels all the time. So he makes meetings all over the fucking world. And he says it's like so awesome.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about AA, right?
It's everywhere.
Not an organization that's ran by people.
Mm-hmm.
It's ran by the individuals who go to AA. And everyone comes together for one common purpose.
That's it.
Stay sober. And everyone struggles, right? So no matter where you go, AA is available. And to see how different people, like their perspectives on drinking all over the world is kind of interesting too.
Well, the beauty of it all is like we just did the Be the Miracle down the way, right? Regardless of if you end up at Kensington or fucking Austria in the hood or Northeast Philadelphia, we all still felt the same.
Right.
And I think that's what ties everyone together. Like I was just at a work meeting on Friday. Fucking crazy. So we're in Port Richmond in this warehouse. Like some guy, they manufactures a Pilates equipment. So we meet the owner's rep, we meet the owner. Basically, we're in the process of trying to get the job. So it's me and the owner's rep, and just her and I in a room for like 3 minutes. And I was like, oh, how was your New Year's? And she's like, oh, just drank warm apple cider and went to bed. And I'm like, no shit. I'm like, yeah, I was in bed by 10. I'm like, you don't drink? And she's like, no, I'm sober. And I'm like, me too. She's like, and right away she's like, AA or NA? And I'm looking around to see if like my bosses are around because like I don't want them to fucking know. They just know I don't drink. And NA's been sober for like 7 years. I'm like, get the fuck out of here.
That's
like,
amazing.
It's crazy. It's everywhere. And her exact words were, it's more prevalent in our business than you think. And I don't know if she meant construction or like construction management, but it was kind of cool.
I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Everyone struggles with alcohol or other substances. Everyone has maybe sometime questioned, am I drinking too much?
Yeah.
Or I shouldn't have drank that much, right? Like who hasn't woke up and said, oh, I probably shouldn't have had drank that much? And that might be 2 drinks to some or 75 to the other. You know,
I should have did that 5th perk 30. That's the fucking one right there.
Right, exactly. Like I know when it became, oh no, I'm not coming back from this.
Well, it's like, it's socially acceptable to have a glass or 2 of wine every day, but I can't just take half a 30 every night. You know what I mean? That's like, I know I'm being facetious, but like, that's the reality of it. Like, I would never want to have a couple glasses of wine, but if it was acceptable to eat a perk every night, like, oh, maybe I'll do that.
I know, and
that's my crazy brain.
But if people who drank actually had tried other things, because some people haven't, some people just keep it in the bottle, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I think everyone would have that same feeling.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
Right, because just you took a perk 30, right? You're just feeling good. You're
just
relaxed.
feeling good. Just
Relax.
feeling good,
It's a
feeling
little
good.
dopamine hit. You're
Yeah.
like, I've arrived, but now I'm like ready to take on the day and be more productive.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not like I took a perk 30 and I'm just gonna sit here and want more and more and more.
Well, the crazy part of my addiction is like my career and my professional life, my personal life had this inverse relationship for a decade. I kept advancing in my career, and my personal life was just slowly fucking crumbling.
Deteriorating.
So like I'm getting promotions, I'm getting raises, I'm getting job offers, and I'm fucking high as a kite every day, dude. Because I go to work high, and in my business, in my world, I'm very, very productive. Now, don't get me wrong, like I'm certainly hamstringing myself. Like I could be way better. I used to think to myself, like, I'll be way better at my job high, so why would I stop? I know that's not real.
No, but that's a true thought. And I've struggled, and I know that at one point I thought I couldn't do my job without.
100%. Dude, I just read something. So every morning I get sent to me the daily reflections, and I'm paraphrasing, but something this morning was like, you find yourself in a situation in your life where the idea of stopping seems like it's going to be the end of the world, right? But not drinking or getting high also seems like the end of the world, so you don't know what to do.
Right. Well, that's the thing. So that's how the brain works, right? Too. You like in the beginning, it's such a rush. You feel good. You want to do good. Mm-hmm. And then you keep searching for that feel good. So, I mean, that's how addiction works, right?
Yeah.
You keep wanting more. And that same high that you first got, or like the first couple months, right? It's the same when, say you take a perk 30 and you're like in pain.
Right.
Shit, that worked great.
Yeah.
After a while, that's just not working as great, right? So you need more and more and
Yeah,
more. It's the
yeah.
same thing. It like releases that dopamine rush that you're like, I'm on top of the world. Aha, I've arrived.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to go do this, and this. And that's the funny thing about it. Because everyone thinks that, oh, you do drugs, you must be a low beat dead ass,
Yeah.
It's not the case.
Yeah. No, I mean, not for either one of us.
No.
Don't get me wrong. We ended up in a situation that was terrible, but, you kind of still were on the up and up. I'm saying our bottoms, and this is the trick. This is what fucked me up for years. My bottom was never as bad as some people that I would perceive as really fucked up people. You know what I mean? And that would trick me.
Right.
Like, dude, I go to work and make a lot of money. Like, my wife is beautiful. Like, I have a house. Like, come on, is it really that bad? And like, these are the things that would just.
And that's when I think it's actually more tough.
It's worse. Like, you can't tell some dude living down Kensington and Somerset that my bottom's worse than his. Like, I'm not naive enough to think that. But the death of 1,000 cuts that my life had become, I think was harder for me to get sober than like Megan divorcing me, or my daughter not wanting to talk to me, or losing my house, or getting fired at work. Like, those things never happened. I was close. I was close. You know what I mean? But like, I never lost something so powerful enough to trigger me to get sober. It was always like I was just broken down so badly that I was like, all right, maybe I should fucking stop.
Well, that's the thing, though. It's the mental anguish that comes along with it.
Yeah.
Especially if you're doing well and life seems okay on the outside. Mm-hmm. Why stop? Like,
Yeah.
I haven't hit a bottom. I'm still doing this, and this. Is that justifiable reason to keep going, even though I feel like shit inside? Because all that guilt and shame still comes with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you're like, but I still have this, and this. So then it's like the good angel, bad angel just arguing all day, and you're like in this mental turmoil.
It's terrible. Dude, I was at a meeting one time that my dad was like, he was either chairing or speaking. I'm there on a Suboxone, right? And at this point, like, I wasn't ready to stop. I'm fucking at a meeting on a Suboxone, and I like raised my hand and I said, like, my life will just be way better. I'm way more productive. Hi, like. And like, this is my dad, dude. At this point, he probably had like 10, 12 years sober from heroin. And, he didn't beat me up. He would just always say, don't believe the lie. Like, don't believe the lie. It's a fucking lie, man.
Yeah, but that lie sounds good.
It's terrible. Like, oh my God, it's so bad. It's so bad.
And like, from my perspective, so I've always been into psychology, like patterns, behaviors, and addiction is patterns, behaviors. And when I was in the rooms, people would always be like, it's patterns and behaviors, it's patterns and behaviors. And when you boil it down to psychology, that's exactly what you're studying is humans' patterns and behaviors. And I forgot where I was going with this.
Well, I mean, I think you're to the point, like, maybe how we become addicted to certain things. It's like you're doing the same thing over and over again, and like, what else do you think is going to happen? That's how I look at it. Like
Well, and that's the thing too, is that every time I would engage in a substance, I almost felt, because growing up, I felt like I was different. I don't know if you've ever felt like this, but I've heard people in the room say it. Growing up, I always felt different. I always felt like something was a little off. Like I just didn't get or adapt to what people around me were feeling, or I always felt like a little different. So when I found substances, it was like I finally felt normal and that I could be like my peers. And it gave me this boost, this motivation to be essentially more outgoing, more confident.
Yeah.
I had more energy, more motivation. When you have all those things, right? Because essentially what depression is low energy, low motivation. And when you took a substance, you had the opposite effect. So you're like, this is great.
Great.
I'm going to keep doing this.
Yeah. I love this feeling.
Right?
I love this feeling. Yeah.
And that's like the draw of substances, chemical dependence, is that it gives you that feeling that you've always been searching for.
Yeah. I mean, every single relationship I was ever in, I met the girl high on perks, except for Megan. Everyone.
So you weren't high on perks when you met me?
No, our first date I was 90 days sober. I relapsed that night. I took her to Elvez, and then went to Helium, and I was drinking. And I drank for a handful of months, and then subs kicked back in, and then the perks, and then all that other stuff. But
that's interesting.
yeah, every single relationship that I can remember, I met the person on drugs. Maybe not like the girl in high school, but
yeah.
You know.
Well, no, I think I've always met like.
But I was embarrassed. I was insecure, afraid. Like, how am I going to talk to this pretty girl? Me being me, the way I am, the way I look, like. But then when you're on perks, it's like whatever.
That's like when people ask you for coffee and you're like, on a date? I don't fucking get coffee.
Yeah. I'm like, what do you mean for lunch? What are you talking about?
Right, like, no, let's get a couple drinks and an appetizer and
see where this thing goes.
Yeah. Like, I can't talk to you sober.
Well, so the beauty of the podcast, and when we tried to do this a few months ago. I mean, you were just
a few months ago?
Yeah.
Maybe a year ago.
A year ago. Well, whatever. We tried to do it before. You were swamped with life, and our schedules just didn't align. And it kind of like aligns perfectly now with where you're at in your life.
I know.
And as you know, we talk about the day before rehab experience and what that looks like. I don't want to get into that right this second, but kind of talk about what led you to the position to have a day before rehab experience. Like, what was your life like growing up, you know, where you're from, and like what was that situation like for you? So
essentially, and I don't know if you want me to go down a long-winded pipe or...
we got time.
Okay. So life's interesting, and, you know, I can't ever say, like, I wish I was someone else, because everything that has happened in my life has made me the person I am now. But growing up, life was hard. So, little backstory, like my mom, who suffers from depression, anxiety, she had a really rough time growing up. You know, her parents were Italian, very strict. My grandfather was in a band in Hoboken. He played with Frank Sinatra and Nat King Cole. Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah, and my grandfather was this womanizer.
Okay.
And my grandmother was the one at home who took care of everything, you know, the really nurturing type.
That's how my mom's parents were.
Right, and I think that's an Italian household.
Well, my mom's dad, he's Irish and German, but he was a fucking hound dog.
Right.
Hound dog.
And I think it was, you know, back then, that's just what you accepted. So, you know, my addiction depression, anxiety runs heavy on my mom's side. You know, my mom's sister actually died of a heroin overdose at 21 in like
Really?
the 70s. Yeah. And my mom was the younger child, and it became more of like she was angry at my mom, my grandmother. So anyway, long story short, my mom had a child before me. I have an older brother. He's 7.5 years older than me. And then she had a child. And like back in the 80s, my mom had to go back to work. She was a teacher. And like the babysitter was watching him 6 months maybe. And the babysitter actually dropped my brother on his head.
Really?
So my mom comes home from work and she has essentially a baby that's passed.
The baby.
She
Oh my
babysitter
God.
put the baby back to sleep, didn't know what to do at the time, and she just cuddled him. You know, he was crying and just put him to sleep. So my mom after that, like, just went down a deep hole, right? And my mom's 35 at the time. She had me at 36. She meets my dad at a club in New York City, and my dad's living in a car, by the way. So my mom's like, yes, I want you.
Home run.
Right? And she tells my dad that she tells my dad she's on birth control, has me, and my
She
dad.
lied to him on purpose?
Yes.
What?
Right. She was like, I want a baby and I want it with you.
We can all fit in that car, brother.
Right. So she has me, and my dad's like, wait, what? So he already had 3 children prior to me, and he's older. And so already I'm coming out to chaos. And, you know, my mom and my dad had this like tumultuous relationship. Obviously, it started off on bad terms. It was going to continue to grow on bad terms and deceit. And I'm living with my mom, and my dad's like, you know, trying to be a part of my life. But my mom, there's just that huge elephant in the room that you just can't get past. And I grew up in like, my mom's still dealing with this depression and anxiety. So she's like hanging out with people she shouldn't hang out with. And I'm like essentially growing up in these like crack houses.
No
you know,
shit.
they're just people doing drugs. I remember being little and like seeing things and like picking them up and stuff and like getting yelled at because I'm not supposed to pick them up, but they're in plain sight. And then, you know, I grew up and like bad things happened. You know, essentially my mom was leaving me with wrong people. And unfortunately, like I got the brunt of the circumstances. And like, I only say this now and I'm open about it is because if anyone who ever feels this way or has had something happen to them, the instinctual drive is to keep it to themselves. They don't want people to know because they're shameful, they're embarrassed, they're guilty. And, you know, I was molested from ages 5 to 6 or 4 to 6. And, you know, the perpetrator and his girlfriend at the time told me just to keep it a secret. So that's what I did.
Who were they to you?
So it was essentially my mom left me with this guy. And at the time, it was a younger woman. And this guy was in his 50s, but I'm 4 years old. I don't realize that she's not an adult. She was like 18 at the time, 17. And he was babysitting her.
Okay.
So my mom thought it'd be safe to leave me with him.
Right.
Well, they had some weird ass relationship. So essentially, they told me they want to play the game, and this is the game we would play. And it was attention. My mom was obviously dealing with her own shit and wasn't giving me the attention. My dad was like half in. He wasn't giving me attention, and I would ask to play this game all the time. So as a child, you know, I'm getting attention. I don't really know if this attention is good or bad. And I'm asking to play this game, essentially what they called it. And it was molestation. And growing up, they told me to keep it a secret. So I keep it a secret. I'm telling you, I did not let this secret out to anyone. And I had behaviors that my mom should have picked up on as a child, but she didn't. Like, I was humping the couch. Like,
Really?
Because...
You think you're playing the game.
Right?
Yeah.
So, it wasn't until I got older and my mom started to work through her own shit. And my mom's always been successful, right? It's funny how, like, your whole life can be falling apart, but, like, you still show up to work and do your job.
Yeah.
And that was my mom. Like, she knew she had to show up, like, make money. And
keep the ball rolling.
Yeah, and this is what she did. And, like, growing up, she went through her own alcohol struggles. And I remember as a child, like, my mom throwing up in the morning, not really knowing why, but, like, me trying to help her. Mm-hmm. And, like, as I grew up, then I remember my mom, like, she blacking out. And then, like, she'd always be like, when she was blacked out, call your dad. You need to have a relationship with your dad. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it was silent. Like, I don't care if you talk to your dad or not. So, like, as a little girl, like, these patterns of behaviors, I knew that something was off. Like,
now, did you have friends at the time where you can kind of see what their families were like compared to what yours was like?
Oh, well, that's the thing. So, like, growing up, I cling to my friends' families because they were so normal. I felt accepted. I felt a part of, right? What every little child's, like, wanting is, like, belonging. Yeah. And I found that. And, thank God for sports because growing up, sports kind of kept me in line where I was good enough, and I'm talking sports like cheerleading and gymnastics.
Oh, yeah.
But, it was like a
structure.
A structure, and it was belonging, and I did well, and, I felt like I was always the, like, misfit on their team because the moms would be like, yo, I don't know if you should hang out with her. But, like, I was friendly with everyone, and I always wanted to be a part of. So growing up, I always, like, felt different. And I had, like, little isms.
Well, you just said you wanted to be a part of. And, like, when you're not a part of and you become a part, it's, like, such a good feeling as a little kid. I know what that feels like intimately. I get it.
Right.
Like, really doesn't matter how you got there, but you're a part of something, and it's fucking amazing.
I know. And you want to be, like, the things they would do together as a family, like, it felt so good and warm.
Yeah.
And you're like, this is awesome. I never wanted to come home. So, long story short, I dealt with that. And then I had isms. And, like, when you keep something suppressed for so long, it starts manifesting in other ways, right? So then during middle school, hormones start setting in and all these weird feelings start coming about. And, like, I fell into a little depression, actually a great depression. And, I had gained weight and people started making fun of me. And, back in the 90s, like, even the cheerleading moms were like, oh, Marissa's getting fat.
Now, how old are you?
At the time, I was like 7th grade.
No, how old are you now?
I'm 38.
Okay, so we're around the same age. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
So I'm like, okay.
Fat Marissa?
Yeah, and like, middle school, you start having crushes on people.
Yeah.
And I remember my boyfriend, or I called him my boyfriend. He was not my boyfriend. But, I'm walking home from school that day, and he started teasing me, calling me fat. And, any child who comes home and tells their mom, would be like, oh, don't listen to that boy. But, like, I never felt comfortable telling my mom these things because my mom and I didn't have that relationship, right? Mm-hmm. So I kind of just, sat with it, and then I'm going to go on a diet. And, I started losing weight, and I started getting attention. So here's that sense of belonging again. I was a part of. People were like, hey, you look really good, blah, 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 blah. So all this is feeding my little ego. And then it's like, well, like addiction. If I look good at this weight, let me keep going, right?
If they like me now, where do they see me later?
Right, and more and more and more. And it became this obsession. And, at 16 years old, I ended up in Princeton, actually, the Center for Eating Disorders, because I was like full-blown eating disorder, not getting my period and all this stuff. And, that was the first time I spoke to a therapist. And, you know, they had asked me, like, any childhood trauma. And, of course, I lied. I was like, I ain't getting my mom in trouble. I'm not saying anything. Like,
Yeah.
so.
That's got to be tough to keep in.
It was.
You know?
Well, you know what it was, though? It was like.
Or it was so normal for you at the time.
It was so normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, because the shame and the guilt came with it. And I couldn't identify it then as shame and guilt. Mm-hmm. But I knew it was wrong. But, like, let's just put that on the back burner.
It's so, like, I found out my dad was on heroin, I think I had an inkling in, like, 7th grade. We had a Italian breakfast at our school, our grade school. I remember he was nodding out. And I didn't know what that was. I just know, like, this is not normal.
Right. You knew it was wrong.
Yeah. But, like, you're so little, you didn't understand it.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
And that's, like, what drives me nuts, too, is because parents think, like, they're young. They don't care.
They don't know. Yeah, they don't see.
No. You have, like, this little compass, and you're like, morally, that's not right. That's right. And
Yeah.
you're like, it's deviating for you. You know as a child what's wrong and right.
Yeah.
Instinctually.
Yeah, yes, you do. I agree. Like, when all the other dads seem like they're up and about and your dad's falling asleep over his eggs, like, something's not cool right now.
Right. And you're embarrassed, right? And I think embarrassment, shame, guilt is like one of the heaviest feelings to feel.
Embarrassment is the worst. I get that. And that leads everything you just said, shame and guilt. It's terrible.
Oh, it drives that, like, physical feeling.
Yeah, like
you
fight
get
or
all
flight.
hot.
Yep. I get it. Even as a 41-year-old man, it's no
Right?
different.
To this day, you embarrass me, and I'm like trying to laugh it off, and I'm like, look, can we like
Thinking
move
about it for
on?
a week straight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, next combo. So, you know, with that being said, I like went back. I told my therapist what happened, and I can't even tell you. When I had told my therapist what happened, it was like, I don't know if you ever read the book. It's in AA, but it's like Drop the Rocks.
I've heard of it.
Yeah. And essentially is like you're carrying around this backpack full of rocks. And you're carrying it around and you're like really struggling. But that's all you know is you just got to keep carrying the backpack around with the rocks. And then one day, like, let's unload those rocks. And it's like a weight has been lifted. And oh my God, I can see clear now. Mm-hmm. You know, and essentially like everything just feels okay.
That happened for you as a young kid? Okay.
When I let that out, and you know, and then
This is with your therapist? You finally told them?
my therapist, while I was inpatient as a 16-year-old with my eating disorder, I finally was like, you know what? And it was like a weight had been lifted, and you know, things were gonna be okay. I remember feeling like that, like light.
Yeah. Just saying the words to another
right.
person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's like what the great thing about AA is, right? You go there, you start talking, and like all of a sudden you leave the meeting and you feel a little lighter.
Well, yeah, you realize you're not alone also.
Right.
You know, someone can relate to everything that you've been through or are going through.
And it's okay to talk about things, and people are not going to judge you. Because with judge comes embarrassment again.
Yeah. And then the shame and the guilt. And, yep.
So, exactly. So that's how I felt. And, you know, it was shameful because I, like, had told my mom, and my mom...
Now, your mom didn't know this happened to you yet.
She didn't know.
Okay.
No. But when I told my mom, she didn't want to believe it either.
Okay.
You know, so there comes that shame and guilt again.
Yeah, like almost like probably assuming like you're a kid and you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You were 4. How do
that
you even,
didn't happen, Marissa.
Yeah.
You know, and then like, okay, how invalidating is that?
From your mom. Yeah.
Right? So you get like, you know, your whole essentially like your well-being is like, you're just not there. You're not on the same level as other children who grew up in more secure, validating homes.
Yeah, you're in the process of trying to find your identity, and it's like at every turn, it's being taken from you.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm just like trying to navigate through it. And I'm just, my whole thing is I've always wanted to be normal. I've always wanted to fit in.
What the fuck is that, right?
Right? And I'm just like, I'm there, I'm not there. I'm there, I'm not there. So, you know, long story short, like these issues that stem from childhood, you know, I like missed out on like, you know, if we're going to go into psychology, but Erickson's stages of development, like I didn't meet these milestones. So as I got older, my isms and my trauma kept showing up in different ways. And I tried to keep it together for as long as I could. And it was hard, but like I was doing it. And then kind of when I, was able to start drinking and start doing other things, it was finally the background noise started to lower. And I could be myself. And I could be anything I wanted to be, because guess what? I was probably so fucked up that people were judging me, but like that shame and embarrassment wasn't there because
You fucked up.
I fucked up.
Yeah.
Until the next day, right?
Oh, that's the word.
And then you want to do more because you want to get rid of that shame and embarrassment.
Yes, and here goes the cycle.
Right?
Yep.
And I mean, it's just funny how it leads you down this path. And, I've done so many things. I have 9 lives. I feel like I'm a cockroach.
How so?
Like things have happened and like where other people would just like lay flat on the floor and crumble. I just like,
Keep going.
I keep going. I just keep coming back. You can get rid of me, but I'm going to keep coming back.
It's funny. I was at this meeting a little bit ago, and the dude was sharing for, I think it's 10 years. And he was saying, like, they say the abnormal becomes normal when you're drinking and getting high every day. Mm-hmm. All the chaos, the jails, the stealing, the rehabs. And now he's like, my life is so good. Like, the abnormal of this good life has become normal. And he's like, sometimes it's hard for him to deal with.
Right.
Because, like, he goes from this chaotic life to, like, this sense of normalcy where they go on vacations and they have a happy family. And he's like, it's fucking not normal.
No, and it's uncomfortable.
It's weird. It's weird.
Oh, I have that feeling right now. Like, when is the shoe going to drop?
You know what? I have done a good job with not thinking that way. It does creep in, but I get it. Like, when, and like my sponsor calls it, like, because I always think I'm going to be found out. Like, really, I'm a fraud. You just don't know it.
Right.
The guys at work don't know I'm an idiot. Am I really a good person? No. These are the things I tell myself daily.
I hear you. And I think
it's all bullshit.
It's all bullshit, but like these are our core beliefs.
Yes.
So like telling yourself it's not real, you're like, yeah, you can tell yourself, but am I?
Well, so the funny thing is, my sponsor said to me yesterday, he's like, you can have these thoughts, right? These insecure thoughts, these less than thoughts. As long as they're not hindering your actual actions, you will get through these thoughts.
Right.
If that makes sense. And like, I look at my life, like and probably with you as well, like all the things you've done up until this point. And we just kind of texted about it a few weeks ago. Like, we both think we're fucking crazy. Like, don't deserve to be where we're at. Mm-hmm. But you are where you are. You've gotten to this point. So the thoughts are just that. In my mind, they're just thoughts.
Right.
And like, yes, they obviously come out in some ways, but it's not stopping you from doing anything.
No, but do you ever find yourself, so this is where I struggle, and let me ask you, because we're in similar circumstances. Do you ever find yourself that, you have these thoughts, you're able to keep them at bay, but then when you have to sit still and not do anything, mm-hmm. they start creeping in, and you start kind of like analyzing those thoughts more, and it's like, I don't want to feel this, right? Because here they are. They're like really coming through. Let me do a new project. Let me search for the new thing that I can keep my focus on other than these thoughts.
Yeah. For me, it's like I never feel like whatever it is that I do is enough.
Right.
No matter what. And like we just talked about this New Year's Eve, me and Megan. It's like we looked at the year that we accomplished together, and I honestly can tell you or my wife, like, did we really do anything though? You know what I mean? You got 14 months sober. We've done CrossFit competitions. We signed up for a new one. We're going to have our MBA. We did the Be the Miracle. We're helping people. We're a part of people. But did we really do anything?
Right.
You know what I mean? I got a new job, a great fucking job. Like, did we do anything?
I know. And then you're like, these are all things I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Let me steal that away.
I can't find a sense of pride sometimes in anything that I do.
Right, and that's
I think it's a blessing and a curse. I think that's what keeps me going harder, and I try to just think of it that way. Like, I might feel this way, but
no, that's a good perspective.
It pushes me to keep going.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's how because I have had those thoughts that you just described, like in my downtime, my alone time, and it's usually on a Sunday when there's nothing to do. And then I
I
wake
know
up
that Sunday feel.
It's unfortunately it's like the theme of my life at this point. Like the Sundays are terrible. That's why I like doing the podcast on Sunday.
I was just gonna
because it
say.
gets me out of my head. You know what I mean? I feel like I accomplished something. And then Monday's Monday. You go to the gym, you go to work, and like you're back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's kind of like the theme of my Sunday into Monday. Like,
Well, how important is structure?
it's huge for me, and like I don't have it right now because I'm working from home. It's fucking weird.
I know. Meg told me.
It's strange. Like we finally got an office. We were supposed to go tomorrow, but because of the snow, we might not go. So I finally have a place to go to half the week, starting this week coming up. And but they, it's a blessing and a curse. Like they hired me and they told me you're going to be working from home, which there is stuff to do. Like there's a whole pre-construction side of what I do that you can do from a computer anywhere. But not being on a job site every day is fucking tough. It's fucking
I
tough.
bet.
Yeah, it's tough. It's been my identity as far as my career goes for 2 decades. You know,
Right.
so that's a little challenging, but I'm getting through it because I keep telling myself like this is the career job. This is the job that's gonna set me up for huge success. And then like my sponsor's like, well, why does it gotta be that? Like, why do you always have to look for something more? And I'm like, well, what's the point of this thing?
Well, that's kind of like drugs too, right? More is
Yeah.
always better.
Yes, I'm already thinking about like the next stage in my career would be they title it construction. So it goes senior superintendent, construction manager, and then director of operations. I'm thinking like, all right, well, how long before I can become construction manager? Because then I can shoot for
Always reaching.
Yeah, it's like,
Always reaching.
but I feel like that's I embrace that. My wife thinks I'm crazy for not being just content with what I have, and I'm like, I didn't get sober to be content. I got sober to see how far I can max this fucking thing out, and that's just whether it's a blessing or a curse, like.
And
just
it's
where I'm
you,
at.
essentially.
That's me.
And that's what makes you. And, we're all different. Everything makes us unique in our own way, in our own journey. And I feel the same way. Like, I always want to do better.
Yeah.
And maybe that's from my own insecurities or from my, childhood. But I don't think that's a bad thing.
I don't either. I don't either. Like I'd like Jordan Peterson. Do you know who he is?
No.
So he's like a Canadian dude who taught at Harvard, big psychology guy. You would love him if you checked in on him. And he talks about our core human drives for most people. There's a pinnacle you set for yourself. You get to the pinnacle. You can't stay there too long. You got to find the next pinnacle.
Right.
And that's what drives you to keep doing better.
Right.
That's how I look at it. Well, some people might say too, like, slow the fuck down.
No, and you know what? For those people, I do, especially Megan too, because I've thought about this. Like, that's great, just to be like happy being, and maybe one day I'll get to that point. And I do notice myself getting to that point more. Mm-hmm. Like I don't search for the drama anymore. I don't search for the chaos. I actually like. I'm more happy just being content. But it's that instinctual drive that I just keep going. And, there has to be something said for that where that's what makes us successful. And maybe a lot of people think that way. And that's why they are successful. It'd be interesting to see someone who's, like Elon Musk or something, who, like, do they have that instinctual drive where they just keep going, or how their brain works to keep motivating and stay motivated?
Yeah, it's like I feel like their minds are just wired so differently where they just can't stay still.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I've joked about this on the podcast a million times. Like I'm no fucking Elon Musk, but my brain, and I'm assuming my brain is wired in a way that I have to keep going.
Right. And I think it's the dopamine hit, to be honest, because dopamine is like our pleasure center. And that's essentially what drugs give.
Yeah. Right? And that's why I think we're so addicted to the gym.
Oh, yeah.
I
can tell you without the gym, I would not be where I am right now.
No fucking way.
And I'm really grateful. And we met at Reed, and I'm really grateful for Reed. Because
I love Reed.
Finding CrossFit is, I was sober for 6 years, and that's what kept me sober, is showing up every day and talking to people there, meeting different people, and working out really hard. And, the best feeling is accomplishing a workout and that feeling after. There's a sense of proud.
Yeah.
Like, you're proud. You feel good, and all those like endorphins are hitting you.
Especially with what we do. I mean, CrossFit is like, it's really, yeah, you're competing with other people sometimes and there's competitions, but getting through a workout is fucking, some of them are brutal. And the fact that you're able to push yourself to do it and do it well, like there's something to be said about that.
Oh yeah, that mental toughness. Like,
Yeah.
I hate this right now, but let me just stay focused and keep chipping away.
It's just like life.
And you kind of have to slow your brain down during a workout sometimes too, because I'm like, oh no, I got to get this over with, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no, just keep going 1 rep at a time.
Yeah.
I have to tell myself.
Well,
just one more.
I would never say this to my sponsor, but the gym is equally as important to me as AA. No question. I can't have one without the other.
I hear you.
I can't. Like, if I stopped going to meetings, I would ultimately stop going to the gym. If I stopped going to the gym, I would stop going to meetings. For me, it's a total continuum. It has to be the way that it is.
Of course. And that's like what I recommend. I'm a nurse practitioner now doing mental health, and so many people don't work out. And I just want to be like, I know it's tough. I know it's tough to get started. Ultimately, the hardest part is getting started.
Yeah.
And I think that's with anything, right? Applying to grad school, the hardest part was doing the application.
Yeah.
Once the application was complete, I'm like, oh, fucked. I'm already enrolled. What's going on? I start tomorrow,
Yeah, it's wild.
It just kind of falls into place after that. And that's like how I talk about the gym, is that it's the initial, let me go. And before you know it, you start feeling good. And then it's that pattern behavior where you're like, I need that feeling.
Yeah.
Like, I know I'm going to feel good. Let me keep doing it. Feel good, look good. It all goes in a sense. And, as a provider now, yeah, I can prescribe medications. But, like, if you're not taking care of your physical health and you're not getting those natural endorphins, medications will only get you so far.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yes. I see that with, I won't get specific, but there's someone in my life that I love more than anything, and it's not my wife. And, yeah, they prescribe Adderall and some other bullshit. And it's like, that's not the answer.
No,
I'm not saying it's not the answer, but there's way more to that. You know what I mean? It's like, I joke around, like if I said 1 + 1 was 2, but Instagram said 1 + 1 was 3, then it's clearly 3. You know what I mean? It's clearly 3.
Right. And that's the thing. And, I try to you don't want to seem like a nag. And I'm sure you don't either. But people ultimately, they downplay the effects of working out. And I think that's what's great about CrossFit, is that it's such a norm for people. Like, people who do CrossFit, they're going consistently.
Yeah.
It's not like they go once a week or 3 times a month. No, they're going consistency because they like the way it makes them feel.
Yeah.
And then guess what happens? You start getting better at it because you're going consistently. And then you start reaching goals.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the goals is the reward pleasure part of it. Yo, I couldn't lift that a month ago. Look at me now.
Yeah, that's why they keep track of your times and your records and stuff like that.
Right. And I mean, that's the beauty of it. And I try to encourage patients. I really do. But, you can only say so many things.
Yeah, well, it's like you said, the hardest part is getting started.
Right.
Fucking brutal. For so many things in our lives, like whether it's sobriety, whether it's a gym, whether it's school, whether it's a relationship, it's fucking hardest part getting started.
Right. And it's like that college application. If you're thinking about doing it, just do it.
Yeah.
Just fill it out. And
So
then everything else happens.
Well, right, the hard part is filling out, and then you got to fucking pass all the classes. It's like,
I don't know. You know what? I feel like with college, they'll pass you. You're paying them. It's like a business. Come on.
It is like some of the classes for my MBA program. I'm like, am I really fucking paying for this? Like, this is crazy.
I know, but you know what? They don't want you to fail because they want your money.
Yeah.
That's the way I try to reframe it in my head.
Especially grad school.
Right.
Especially grad school.
You don't even have to do it. Like, you're there for your own spending pleasure. So, they really want to pass you.
That's like a whole other thing.
Right?
So back it up a little bit. You were talking about you finally unloaded on your therapist. Pick up from there for me.
All right. So I unloaded on my therapist, and, things got better. I did get medication as a child, and it really did help. And, for someone who is struggling and, you know, is doing everything that they think they can do and they're at a loss, like medication does serve its place. And I know for me, I was always having constantly these bad thoughts, and it was like perseverating. I like consider it a record player, right? And you're just going, going, going. Your mind's going, going, going. And what medication did to me, it's like putting the needle down on the record and slowing it down.
I get that.
I can get a clear thought in instead of just the record just constantly spinning, right? Or like a scratch on a CD, for those who don't know records.
There might be some who don't know CD.
I know, right? So the scratch on the CD causes...
When your Netflix isn't loading.
Right. You're just spinning. So, and that's what medication did for me. It gave me that little pause that I can kind of gather my thoughts, you know? And I did well for a while. And, you know, I ended up like every girl with trauma. I went to college. I went to community college, and I majored in psychology. And then I was like, oh, shit, what do I do with this? So I bartended for a while, and I drank a lot. I had the best years in my 20s.
Hell yeah. Before I knew I was an addict, I had a great...
Right. I was so carefree and fun. And I had so many people that were like, you know, friends. And
it was fun.
It was great. I worked. I always showed up, you know, and I think I got that from my mom. I always showed up, did what I had to do. Like, there wasn't ever a point where I'm, like, not showing up. You know, like, I think somewhere along the line, like, that was instilled in me. Just always show up. It's half the battle.
Yeah.
Right? AA meeting. Just show up.
Yeah.
And I don't care if you listen. Just show up.
No, I agree. That's how I look at my career.
So then I get to this, you know, and I meet a guy, and I've had, you know, for me, it was relationship after relationship. I couldn't be single because being single was bad. What do you mean someone doesn't love you?
Right.
Right? So I would just jump from relationship to relationship. And I was a chameleon. I adapted to each relationship. You know, you like this? Oh, I love that. I'm going to learn everything about it and be an expert in it so we can, like, shoot the shit.
Hey, well, you know, it makes a good partner, too.
Right. Well, that's what I wanted to be, ultimately.
Yeah.
You can't leave me. I'm the best partner.
Right.
So, you know, that fear of abandonment. And essentially what happened is I ended up going to nursing school because I graduated with my bachelor's in psychology. It was like, what do I do with this? I was a bartender. And I, you know, wanted something more for myself. I did think long term, like, how am I going to support myself? So I went back for nursing. And originally I did plan as a nursing major because I asked my mom, what do I do with my life? And she said, be a nurse. And then I realized you had to go to classes to be a nurse. And you really had to study. And then I was like, yeah, let me do psychology. So, you know, full swing around. I did do my bachelor's in nursing, met a guy who was ultimately like the worst decision of my life, but made me who I am today. Met him at a bar. You know, we did a lot of cocaine that night. And fell in love in a hopeless place.
Oh, my God. It reminds me of someone good.
Right? And then it was like, it was fun. He worked, he was from Maine. He worked at a hedge fund in New York City and, you know, worked all these crazy hours and essentially had so much stress. Looking back at it now, it was probably a stress ulcer. But he was, like, prescribed perks. And he was taking them, and I thought nothing of it. And then, you know, we kept dating, and things were progressing. And, you know, essentially his addiction kind of, like, jumped off, and I kind of turned my eye to it. I don't want to say didn't know about it, because I did. But, you know, things felt good, so let me just, you know, suppress that.
Yeah, let's sweep that under the rug.
Right?
Yeah.
Everything else is great. So essentially he progressed and, you know, we got engaged. And I never thought about marriage, really. I never thought about having kids. But, like, when we got engaged, I just felt I was accepted. someone wanted to marry me. And let me tell you, his family was great.
That'd probably be a little tough then.
I love that family.
Yeah.
You know, it was that belonging I wanted.
Yeah, they would like, I guess, what you considered a normal family.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they had their shit, but like they loved each other, you know? So.
I always wondered what that would look like. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing. I always dated these guys who had these wonderful families and like accepted me. So it was really hard to break up with them, right? Because you're breaking up with the family.
Yeah. Well, usually I was the one getting broken up with, but yeah.
Well, I mean,
I get what you're saying.
It was a 50-50 for me.
I get it.
So anyway, I started like really planning. We were living in this $1 million condo, not my money, but his. And, you know, everything was great. And one day I came home. You know, essentially, there was some red flags. Like, I came home one day and the bed was made. And I was like, this motherfucker does not make a bed.
Here we go.
You know? So then I'm like, this is fucking weird. And, you know, he denied.
How old are you at the time?
27.
27, okay.
Yeah, and then I'm like, I knew, but like, let me not disrupt it because I don't want him to like
break up with you.
Right.
Yeah.
So essentially, I came home. They're fucking, you know,
red-handed.
Oh
my god.
There was like a high heel. The like stiletto must have been like 6 inches long too, and I was like, what the? See that on the floor? I'm like, that ain't mine. And let me tell you too, she was a shot girl at Tao, which is like a high prestige New York City club. And he must have met her there. And, you know, it's sad because there's like pictures of us on the nightstand. And
what a fucking whore.
They're just fucking away like jackrabbits.
What a whore.
And, you know,
she's probably a good person, though. I'm just kidding.
Not, you know, there's so many layers to that. But, you know, she's fucking him. I, like, dropped to my knees. I'm telling you, I've never felt so weak. There was, like, I stood up, I dropped to my knees. And, like, I am an aggressive person by nature.
Okay.
Right? I've had to be aggressive to get this far.
Yeah, to get through what you went through, for sure.
And I couldn't do a damn thing. I was stuttering. People were like...
That's a traumatic experience.
Right. People were like, did you fuck her up? I was like...
You know...
I couldn't stand up.
Even if the roles were reversed, you know, that would be the first thing a guy would say to another guy. Did you fuck him up? Like, you're fucking stunned.
That's the thing.
I can only imagine you're stunned.
I was a deer in my tracks.
Yes. I can only imagine.
And, you know, he's like barging me out of the room while she's there. And I'm like trying to yell, but I'm like, what the? I'm crying. And nothing's like, anything I want to say, I couldn't get out. And he kicks me out of the house and locks the door. And I'm like, what the fuck just happened? So like he's like, go to your brothers. So the idiot like I am, I go to my brothers. And it was so devastating for me. And like, you know, I never want to feel this way. And thankfully I never have. But like I pled and plead with him to take me back.
Oh my God.
You know?
And that's probably a direct result of everything you went through from, from your childhood to that
And
point.
it's like, the motherfucker just cheated on me, and here I am pleading with him, bargaining. So, you know, I really went down a dark, dark hole. And, you know, I was drinking every day. I was drinking, you know, not even the 750 ml bottles of wine. It was like the big boys, the Magnum. And that was my norm. And then I would wake up and, you know, sometimes I'd do a little coke. Sometimes I would do some other things. You know, I had Adderall. I was prescribed.
And you were still like going to work and going to...
Oh, yeah.
Were you in school at this time?
No, I had graduated. I was a nurse. And here I am going and I'm taking care of patients. And, you know, I reached for other substances to get me through. And it did. Yo, when I would take those things, like...
You're flying at work, crushing life.
Crushing it.
Yes.
Everyone would be like, oh, wow.
Yes.
You're such a nice person.
Yeah. Did you ever hear the part where I said the day before I went to rehab, my boss came in the trailer? Did you ever hear me talk about that? Oh my God, dude, I just blew a line in the fucking... So construction managers, we have our own trailer. I'm in my trailer, I have my office, the project manager's office who's in his room, and I go into the bathroom, I fucking blow a 30. You know what I mean? Let's get to work. You know what I mean? Let's crush this day. And as I walk out of the bathroom, my direct boss walks in. I'm like, oh my God.
And your eyes are probably like, boop.
But, you know,
You
like,
got that little glow going
you're
on.
in it. You're in it. So we walk the job site, and he tells me how good I'm doing. 12 hours later, I call him. I got to go to rehab. It's like, but to your point, like you're doing, you know, service level shit that indicate that you're okay.
Right. And drugs did for me what I couldn't do for myself at that time.
Yes.
And, you know, given my circumstances and the decisions I had at the time, were they the right decisions? No, but it's what helped me through that time. Mm-hmm. You know, whether it be good or bad. Because the other thing was, like, do I keep going and doing what I'm doing, or do I just fall into this deep depression and not get out of the bed? Right? Like, I felt like I had two. It was either fight or freeze. Mm-hmm. And I fought, and I didn't do it well, right? I didn't do it well to most people's standards. But at the time, I made those choices because presenting the information, I felt that was the best way. And, you know, I got through, and, you know, shit, just like anything, it progresses and it gets worse and worse. And I ended up in rehab, you know, and I think it was funny. So, like, I was a drug addict and an alcoholic, but I wasn't. So here I go about fitting in again. Mm-hmm. I wasn't like the hardcore people, so I wasn't accepted like them. Right?
I lied about my drug use multiple times.
You had to, because like if you weren't shooting dope, who are you?
My thought process was like, they were gonna think like, why are you here, you pussy?
That's what they do, though. I couldn't hang out with them.
Well, the IV users in rehab, they all gravitate towards each other because they have a thing. I don't know what that is, but they have like a connection to that situation.
Well, they have war stories.
Yeah, well, I think it's more than that. I think it's like the setup of the process to shoot drugs intravenously that connects them. That was always my thought process.
Right, and I was sitting in the conversations because, of course, I met a boy in rehab.
Oh, you're one of them.
Rehab romance. I fell in love. I still love him, but, you know, in a different way. But it was funny because I also wasn't like the normal people where I could just go drink and have a happy hour either. So like I never like felt comfortable with my drug use either. Like, do I have to be this or this to fit in? So, you know, I didn't even get to go to the detox because apparently they looked at me and, you know, I didn't fit the description.
That was me too. I get that. I didn't need a detox.
So they were like, "Oh, you're just gonna jump in this."
You're like the biggest pussy rehabber ever.
I know.
Because they would ask me,
"You have a job?
How long were you in detox for?" I'm like 6 hours, and they're like, "What are you on?" I'm like, "Well, I did like perks and coke for 2 weeks, but I've been doing the shit from the tobacco store for 2 years."
Right. And then they're like, "You have insurance." You know, you have a job that pays for this, so
like you're coming back to a job. You know, I can't say you weren't broke, or maybe you were, but like you're coming back to a life that like
I wasn't broke. That was the thing. I like could have paid for rehab out of pocket. They're like, you know, we're gonna just essentially they should have put me in detox.
Well, and the point of it all, this isn't like something that separates us from how bad it was. That was just our reality,
right? And that goes back to those feelings of like, I'm not belonging here, so I don't have a problem. Mm-hmm. You know, like I'm not sick enough.
Right.
Mentality, but like, yeah, you are because you ended up here.
Yeah, you are here. You don't like what do they say? You don't show up today.
And it wasn't by choice. Like I was mandated. So here I am showing up to rehab, and you know what? I'm from North Jersey, and I ended up in Pennsylvania.
Where'd you go?
Living Grid.
Oh, okay.
And let me tell you, it was like the best thing that could have ever happened to me. Yeah. And, you know, every decision in my life has ultimately landed me where I am now, exactly where I'm supposed to be. And, you know, I was so shameful of that, but I cried for the first 3 days. No one would talk to me. Literally was crying in the corner. Mm-hmm. And I met, like,
the sweetest drug addict ever who you fell in love with. God, I'm sorry.
Well, he saw me and I was like, she looks like she has a lot to lose right now because she's crying so much. So let me get her.
Dude, my buddy, one of the last rehabs he went to, Rehab Romance, and this chick was like, "I'm getting a check in the on her I guess sent to her debit card in like a day or so." He's like, she's like, "Let's get the fuck out of here." And he's like, "What's she gonna get? Like $200-300?" And he knows the number to the penny. So she gets the check. It's on. I guess they had their phone. She calls the bank and the debit card, and it was like $5,000.
See?
And they fucking left instantly.
Well, see, I had like a little goody two shoes side to me still because I had to show up, right? Anything I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna exceed at it. So I was like the perfect rehab patient.
I was vice president, by the way. I was so happy about that.
Right, and I was like the one raising my hand during the meeting. And they're like, "All right, shut up." So essentially, I met a guy there, and I was in Pennsylvania. I had no idea where I was, and they had told me to do a recovery house, and I was like, "No fucking way!" But being like, I met this guy, so now I had to do a recovery house to stay down here to see him.
Right.
So I did the recovery house. Well, let me tell you a shocker. I went from $1 million condo and then living in my brother's spare room because, he cheated on me. But then I went to a top of a bunk with 3 other individuals who cursed and smoked Newports and I just didn't fit in. They're all wearing Yeezys, and
God, you sound like such a bougie white girl right now. I love it.
No, I mean I felt like a bougie white girl, and essentially that's what they thought of me too. And essentially I had a lot of anxiety. I didn't even know because I thought I was so much better. And
it's a crazy culture shock.
Oh my God,
Crazy.
Such culture shock. But you know what? I had my boyfriend, so everything was gonna be okay. Yeah. I'm FaceTiming him on my top bunk, talking about meeting after a meeting. And I did 90 for 90. And I went to Freedom House, Helen Maloney. And I'm really grateful for that whole opportunity. And it was humbling. And I think that's what I essentially needed, was to be humbled. And I learned a lot about myself. And, I did everything that they told me to do. Even though I didn't want to do it and I argued it, but I still did it.
Yeah.
I did 90 for 90. I drove people to meetings. I made coffee.
You were in it.
Yeah.
You were in it.
And I found a lot of good meetings. And, that was the thing, too, because I didn't want to go to the meetings that all my housemates were going to because they essentially were looking for dudes. I had my dude. And
you were a step ahead.
Yeah. I had the good guy, And he, so I went to the meetings, a lot of women's meetings, and I met a lot of good women. And before I knew it, right, half the battle showing up, initiation, I was in it. People were expecting me to show up. I would say I would do something, so then people were counting on me. I never want to disappoint anyone. That's the people-pleasing part, too, right?
Yeah.
And,
but, I mean, at least this is a positive thing.
Oh, yeah. So, before I knew it, here I am, engaged in AA, and I did AA, and let me tell you, it was the best thing to ever happen to me. It's the only time I felt like I was accepted, and my brain thought the same thing that other people were thinking, right? Because when I was in rehab, I justified in my own defense mechanisms. I don't belong here. These people have it worse than me. I still make money, blah, blah, blah. I only do it. I can stop. I don't even have to detox. But then I'm listening to them speak, and everything they're saying is exactly what I think. And I'm like, oh, shit.
Yeah. As soon as you start realizing it's what do they say? It's a disease of feelings and emotions.
Right. It's a disease of the brain.
Yeah. You could start identifying with each and every person.
I know. And everything they were saying, I'm like, I've done that. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, maybe I do belong here. Right? Context clues. It always amazes me when the one person who, they just can't make the connection. That person is saying exactly how you're feeling and did what you did, but you still think you're different.
Yeah, I thought that it took me, I've been around AA for over a decade. I thought everything you just said, I don't really need this shit. I go to work. I mean, I even go to the gym. My wife's hot. Like, do I really need to be here?
Right.
So it's like, yeah.
And isn't that just like, what does our spouse being hot have anything to do with it?
Nothing.
But in our head, valid reason.
So dude, it's ironic. My sponsor just said to me yesterday, we just went over some shit, and the theme of my life is insecure, self-doubt, negative self-talk. And he actually called me out, like, I've heard you say multiple times, you got this beautiful wife. Why do you always say that? Like, do you need to have that? And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, because that makes me
That
hot.
makes
me
such a
like,
fucking...
well, if she wants me, then who does?
Well,
It's like a sense of security.
Well, then there's a whole other level to it, too. What is it, like Maslow's hierarchy, like the status?
Hierarchy of needs, yeah.
Yeah, like it's a core human need to want status.
Yeah, belonging.
And anyone that argues that would be wrong.
Right.
You know, it's not the driving factor in my life, but it's a big part.
Oh, yeah.
It's a big
You know,
part.
you have to meet each need to get to the self-actualization. And
Right. That's what I just read.
Funny, I finally have realized that I've reached self-actualization. So, by the way, I love Maslow, and I could talk about him for days. But anyway, I ended up doing everything, and I moved in with my boyfriend at the time, and we moved in Ben Salem, right? And, you know, my boyfriend was a heroin user, crack, meth, but he looked beautiful. And, you know, he, like, deep down was a good person, still is a good person. And he had, like, these core fundamentals that, like, drawn me to him, values and beliefs. Because at the end of the day, addicts are not bad people. They have values and beliefs. It's just the drug overtakes them.
Yeah.
And our nevers become reality. So I saw that in him, and we moved in together, and he relapsed the first month that we moved in together.
What was that like for you?
So that was interesting.
Yeah,
Because
I'm
here
sure.
I am trying to play the part. I'm going to go bake chicken parm. So I buy all this stuff. And he calls me and he's like, "Did you change the locks?" And I was like, "No." And I really
Snarf.
believe nothing like this conversation was unusual. I thought he was just being weird. Didn't even think he relapsed. And he's like, "You changed the locks?" And he was being weird. So I was like, "No." And anyway, he goes. I come home with all my chicken parm and stuff.
This is the homemaker.
Yeah. He answers the door and he goes, "I relapsed." And I was like, "What?" You know, because everyone said, "Marissa, don't date him. He's going to relapse, blah, blah, blah. This is the worst thing you can do." And I was like, "No, it won't happen to me." So it happened to me. But you know what? He was like, he went down the way and I don't even know what he did. I think he ended up like shooting cocaine. And he was having the worst trip of his life. Like, he thought people were like after him and all this stuff, thought I changed the lock. And I was like, "You're going to a meeting," because I was going to the meeting that night. So I took him to my favorite meeting on Wednesdays, TBD, and it's in Ben Salem. And
You ever go to the Keys?
yeah, of course,
Yeah,
I
I go
went to the
there.
Keys. He met, and I made him talk. Like, I was like, "If you want to stay, this is what you got to do."
Mm-hmm.
And that night it clicked for him, and you know, he's been sober since.
No
And-
shit.
Oh yeah.
That's
And
fucking crazy.
My
Not-
home meeting turned into his, and now,
Right.
like, I'm not even allowed to go there. But anyway, long story short, so, you know what, he ended up staying sober, and, like, we got sober together, and there was a lot of struggles, and, you know, I was dealing with a lot of stuff, I guess, from my past that I had suppressed, and he was too, and we just didn't know how to communicate, but essentially I ended up buying a home in Levittown, and he was with me with the ride, and we got a dog, and I love that dog to death, but, and a cat, and we moved into this home, and then, guess what? I'm sober.
How long has it been at this point?
2 years.
Okay.
And I'm sober and I'm doing everything I have to do, but I start like not going to meetings as
Yep.
much. And I end up cheating on him
Really?
with a psychiatrist at work. And to this day, that's my biggest regret in life. I wish I never had done that. And it's just not me and it's never who I wanted to be. And I remember him finding out, and the look on his face is something that's still imprinted in my
Yeah,
brain.
well, it's probably similar to the look that you had. that you
Yes,
called
right?
dude.
So, like, I did what essentially destroyed me. And you know what? I started, like, going back into my own ways, like, right? Dry drunk ways. And I was sober, but I was still doing the behaviors that I was doing when I was drinking.
Right, yeah.
And other stuff. And I ended up, like, it was a long, drawn-out situation, but I ended up being alone, and I stayed single for, like, 2 years, and, you know, 2, maybe 3 years, and I learned a lot about myself, and I cried a lot, and I did a lot of therapy, a lot of trauma work. I did engage in meetings, and I stayed sober, and I was working out, and maybe, you know, I worked out too much, but that's what helped me. So people who, you know, are always like, you can't work out that much. You do what you got to do to stay sober.
100%. Old head at the meeting down the shore says, what works for you might kill me.
Right.
And
I actually like that a lot.
I identify with that to a T.
Right.
You know what I mean? Whatever works, works. Because
Yeah.
motherfuckers will complicate everything. If it's working, it's working. Who am I to tell you to do something different?
Right.
So I get that.
And that's why I was like, you know, there was some people at Raid that would give me so much hate. And I was like, you don't understand. Like, this is what's keeping me going.
Yeah.
And, and people always, right? The people who don't know anything about you always want to give you advice.
Well, you know, I think people by nature talk fucking shit. I'm no different. I think what sobriety and recovery has given me is an opportunity to understand better what people may be going through. So I've been better at that.
Right. I think, actually, speaking of, we've had some differences.
Yeah.
Where you've told me how to live or do. And, you know, I think at one point I said, you don't know me and you don't know what I dealt with and you don't know the whole story. And I think I actually had to say to you, like, before you come at me,
Yes.
check your facts.
Yes. And I was, you know, that's one thing. How can I say this? When you're in a group setting and you have a large portion of the group saying one thing, you start to believe that one thing.
Of course.
And it's hard to understand that maybe that's not true, right? And when we had that disagreement, you said some things to make me realize that, I was wrong.
Right.
I was wrong. And, you know, that probably, you know, we're better friends now with me, Megan, you, and Dan than before, but that probably was a point in my life where my perception of you changed instantaneously.
Yeah.
But and I think that's the problem with most people. It's like, you know, I have friends, right? If my best friend told me repeatedly negativity about one thing, I'm like, well, yeah, you're probably right. And then you meet this thing and you're like, wait, hold on. Are you sure? So yes, I think that's the best way I could discuss that.
And essentially that's the, like, whole thing that I kind of like getting at too as well, is just because you're presented with some facts about someone doesn't mean it's real. And I think that, like, you know, it kind of goes back to, like, me wanting to, you know, at the gym I struggled a lot.
Yeah.
Because people had their own connotations and beliefs about me and thought they knew me. And I, you know, people talk. And usually who the people are talking is the most fucked up people. Mm-hmm. And they just are kind of essentially not focusing on themselves and another, right? So I think that's where I struggled at the gym. And I, you know, a lot of people had said poor stuff about me at the gym. And, you know, I just kind of pushed through. And I love Reed, but I've struggled a lot there. And essentially that's why I have left. You know, I do plan on coming back at some point. I think it's just going to be in a different light and a different air, and it's not going to be a more consistent thing. But people want to believe what they want to believe because it sounds good.
Well, yeah, it's like I can only relate like the podcast and like me putting myself out there. You know, I think this is like we're like mid-20 episode, and so like everybody that not saying I have a big following, but whoever listened would know everything about me because I don't keep anything back. And I've gotten to a point in my life, and I just talked about this with my sponsor yesterday. It's like, yeah, I do have the negative talk in my brain. I do have insecurities. I do have self-doubt. I don't let them manifest into my actions, right? And this is for you and I, if you're going through life authentically, right, and you are a good person, right, fuck them all.
I know.
Fuck them all. I walk into every situation. I might walk into a situation scared to death, but no one's going to know it but me.
Right.
And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Fuck them. Because I know deep down I'm doing everything I can to be a good person,
right,
one day at a time. Like, that's my life. So, like, regardless of the situation that you found yourself in at the gym was right or wrong or facts were misconstrued or whatever, like, fuck them.
And like, and
I don't mean like go fuck yourself.
Let's
I mean
talk
like
about that situation a little bit to clear the air, because I know there's some people who listen from the gym. Actually, a lot of people, and this person and I had a friendship, and again, I was going through a period in my life where I was single, I was scared, I was down here by myself. My whole family's from North Jersey. I don't know anyone. I'm a female. I own this home. And, this guy was friendly to me. And he seemed like a nice dude. And he is a nice dude.
I agree.
Right? Like, I'm not going to take that away from him. And deep down, I do think he's a good person. I think he has his own little demons that he struggled with. And I think that essentially we became very close friends, but he wanted more than I wanted. And I kept that a very clear-cut boundary throughout. And he was able to agree with that boundary for the most part. And people thought it was weird, and there was red flags. There was a point where, he told people that we were engaging in other things, and that was not true. And I got really upset with him, and, he made amends. And who am I to not forgive someone?
That is the most ironic part about life, right? You want to be forgiven, but it's motherfucking hard to forgive.
You know what? And I've always came to the part, like, be the bigger person. So, like, I forgive, and then, I just move on because life's messy. And then things kept on reoccurring. And, there was one point where this person moved to Florida, did not tell me, just blocked me on everything. And, 6 months later, after realizing that I was blocked, I took the hint. Calls me and is like, I'm coming back. I need a friend, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, what?
Yeah, it's...
and like, there were just so many incidents. And like, I'm no angel. Like, I leaned on him as a friend and, I used him as a friend. And when I was bored, I would call him up. When I was like, being squirrely in my head, like, hey, you want to get food? Because that's what I needed. And maybe his intentions were different and my intentions were different.
So I got to call you out. I feel like for me, if I was single, I could never have a pretty girl as a friend.
Well, thank you for calling me pretty.
Well, it's a fact. I could never have a pretty girl as a friend. If the girl thought that I just wanted to be her friend, I would say she's fucking nuts. Why would I want to have a pretty girl as a friend that I'm not?
Well, so here's the thing.
You gotta understand. Like,
I know,
from his
I know.
perspective, I could only assume that having this girl as a friend was what he had hoped was the catalyst to something
And
more.
I think deep down, just being a guy, that's really what I thought. But like, I also...
But then you really just wanted a friend.
Right. I really wanted a friend. I was scared. I was alone. And, yeah, selfishly, I should have just been like, you know what, Marissa, like, come on, be real. He's this age.
He's a guy.
Whatever.
It doesn't matter regardless. He's a guy.
I mean, I had fun with him. Like, he's deep down a good person. He's a fun person. He has his own demons. And, we would fight like sister and brother. Or if quote unquote a married couple, but I wasn't engaging in sexual relationships. I wasn't giving him the thought that we were going to grow into something. I would talk about my relationships with him. He would talk about his. And then, as time evolved, like he would get mad at me about things and I wouldn't realize what he was getting mad about me, but it was essentially because I was sharing information about relationships and stuff. And I think he just wasn't able to handle it and didn't want to lose a friendship, so couldn't convey that message. And, one day, in the long term, we ended up having way too many drinks, and he walked me in, and we kissed, and he wanted to come in, and I said no, and then it was just a disaster after that. And I really regret that decision. And again, drinking leads to nothing. And, now that I do drink occasionally, I learned a lot from that situation where I do not have more than 2 drinks because I engage in stupid activities like kissing a friend who believed that it would be something more. And long story short, I ended up leaving the gym because the gym, people started acting differently towards me.
They picked a side.
They picked a side, yes. And then people who had no idea. And I've seen some people struggle at that gym and go through some shit.
Here's
Do you want me to go down that rabbit hole?
No. So my take on all of it is like, it was a friendship. It was a little toxic.
Very, very toxic.
It didn't work out. Only you two know the real truth. Things were conveyed that shouldn't have been to people they shouldn't have been conveyed to, and then people subsequently took a side, and that's the facts.
Right.
There's a lot to unpack with that, I believe, but like I think
no, and it is what it is, and it's a learning, growing pain.
Well, and people can't say what they would do if they were in your situation or the other person's. Like everyone likes to assume what they would do, but you don't fucking know.
No.
It's easy to judge when you're not in the fucking situation.
The just crazy part of it is all like, I see people at the gym, right? I have my own thoughts on people, their behaviors, their patterns. Never would I shun someone because I didn't agree with their decisions or their beliefs or their values, right? I'm accepting of all people. Life's messy.
Yeah.
Given your circumstances and the information that you're presented with, you make the best decisions you can. Okay?
And sometimes you make mistakes.
Right. And those decisions aren't always the best decisions, but in that moment, that's what you felt was best. You can't fault someone for that.
No.
There's no manual to life. Everyone thinks they got to figure it out. Hey, got news for you. No one gets out alive.
That's a good way to put it.
Like, right? There's no manual saying, like, this is what you're supposed to do. Everything's made up, right? And then I go back to this, like, even time's not a concept, right? This is man-made thinking and constraints. And here we are being like, this is right, this is wrong, because someone just made this up one day and said it.
Yeah.
Well,
like it's tough because we live in a time now where if people disagree on something,
oh, well, that's the thing.
They must not be as good of a person as me.
Right.
And like that's a tough.
But I think that's a defense mechanism and ignorance on their part, because who the fuck are you?
Yes. And like to your point earlier with the text that we talked about with the situation, like you probably thought to yourself, like, who the fuck are you?
I did.
And you were right. You would have been right.
Right? And like here I can be the person saying, you did this in your life. Right?
Yeah, there's a lot out there.
Why would I ever do that? I'm not going to do that, and I'm not going to fault you for your wrongs. But for you to come out to me and point a finger, remember, there's 4 fingers pointing back at you.
Yes.
And that's like what upset me the most. And I had people coming at me whose like lives I would never want to live, right? That's what I always say, like, take advice.
Take your own advice.
No, like, people will give advice and you're like, put yourself, like, would I ever want to live their life? Would I ever want to be that person? And here they are giving me advice. I laugh.
I get it.
You know,
I get
and
it.
there's some crazy ass shit. And at the end of the day, it's their own defense mechanisms and there's their own insecurities.
Well, human beings are flawed, all of us.
Right. And
You
people
know?
like to give advice and judge people because they're not focusing on themselves.
You know, like, it's fun. I've learned throughout the past 14 months to just shut the fuck up.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I do the podcast, I talk a lot, and I love busting balls. I love talking shit. That's just me. But I honestly can say that I don't have any malicious intent behind my actions. My thoughts, however, are a different thing entirely.
Right.
You know, and I'm okay with that. That's life.
Yeah.
That's life. You know what I mean? I might walk into a situation like, you fucking,
human.
you low down son of a bitch. And, you know, I just keep it to myself. So I get it. I get it.
No,
I get it.
and that's the thing too, right? Like thoughts are one thing, actions are another.
100%. Same thing with
And
the drinks
as
and the drugs.
long as I'm not hurting anyone maliciously, I
Yeah.
might hurt people because that's life.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but there is no ill intent in my bones. I will never go out of my way to hurt you directly.
And if you believe that to your core, I think that's the end of it.
Right. And that's all I know. Like, I don't want bad for anyone. I really don't. Life's hard enough. Why
Terrible.
put that energy out there?
Yeah.
Another layer. And, you know, what AA has taught me is that, you know, life is worth living. You know, you don't have to live the way you used to be. We're all humanly flawed, but each day is an opportunity to be exactly who you want to be.
Yeah, and I think each day is a fresh start.
It is.
That's how I look at
Right?
it. Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, I can reinvent myself so many times. And who I was 2 years ago is not the person I am today.
Right, and it's going to be the same 2 years from now.
Right. And that's evolution and evolvement, right? If you're stagnant, you know, and there are some people who stay stagnant, and that's okay. That works for them. But for me, I'm always looking for ways to be a better person. And you know what? There's one thing that I do live by, and it's cliche, but it's do the right thing. You can't go wrong doing the right thing.
I agree.
And the
I
right
agree.
thing might not be your right thing. But in my eyes, like, I truly believe that's the right thing.
Well, and it's like you have an intuition about you as a human, like we all do, like
Right.
to kind of know what is right versus
wrong.
Like, and I feel it in my stomach, you know what I mean? Like, you just feel
yeah.
it. Like, I know if I'm like dancing down the wrong path or put myself in a situation that is probably not the right one. You can kind of,
Oh, yeah.
you know it.
And I think, you know, even at work, I see it. Like, you can do things to make it easy on yourself. You could do things that you don't necessarily agree with. And you know what? It'll be dandy. But, like, at the end of the night, if I can't go home and put my head on the pillow, like, knowing I did all that I could do and I did what I believed in, I can't fall asleep. And I don't like feeling like that. And I truly believe I might pop off a little bit, right? And get angry because I'm human.
Yeah.
And I might say a couple mouthy things. But let me tell you, I'm the first person who will feel that more.
Yeah.
And I will go and apologize.
What is it? Guilt, I feel bad. Shame, I am bad.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So,
And, you know.
and that's why guilt is a good thing, because
Right.
if you do something that makes you feel guilty, you know not to do that again.
Exactly. And or it knows, like, hey, go fix that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All right?
My sponsor would always bust my balls because we have all these fucking animals, right? And he's like, you just feel guilty. That's why you let your wife get all these animals. And I'm like, oh my God, dude. I'm like, I don't know if he's right or wrong, but like, the 6 is the limit.
Is it though? Have we set that clear-cut boundary?
But you know, like, I think the reason why, like, I didn't know the full history of the childhood and your parents, stuff like that, and like what you've been through is like fucking crazy, and that like was normal for you. You know, like my dad nodded out at the breakfast at Our Lady of Consolation's fucking church was like, hey, well, you know, I guess that's okay.
He's tired.
Yeah, you know, like I never remember a time in my life when my parents got along. That was just normal. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's But then you went through all these things and you transitioned your life, and like I know the nurse practitioner was a big deal for you. Like I imagine the MBA will be for me, and like that's something to be proud of. That's a fucking big deal.
It is. It's something to be proud of. I'm still struggling with the feeling of being proud of. There's a lot of imposter syndrome.
Oh yeah.
But I think that's normal, right? It's also like, oh, I feel like anyone could do this if they just put their mind to it.
Yeah.
You know, so there's all these struggles, but at the end of the day, I am, like, I know I'm a good person. Hey, babe. I wake up, I try to do what's best, you know, and like I said, no one's perfect. Everyone thinks they got to figure out, but no one really fucking knows. And at the end of the day, like, no one gets out of this alive. You just keep just putting one foot ahead of another, and you know what? Hope for the best.
Well, and just be happy that you have another chance to do that.
Right.
You know?
Right.
You know, because like it's funny, like there's only like 2 or 3 couples in our lives that we like to hang around with. And we don't really hang around with anybody, but you and Dan have become one of those. I know we didn't make the last fun party night. On that.
Yeah.
But to be invited to your wedding in Austria, in another country, to enjoy that together with you guys, like we were thrilled. And Dan and I, like we text a lot. We're kind of getting closer, and like that's hard for me to make new friends.
Right.
Very challenging for me. And I'm going for X amount of days to Austria with Dan and Joe, and obviously you, Megan, and Carrie, and it's like that's different for me.
Yeah, it's different for me too. You know, and like there's so many things with this wedding that is like nerve-wracking, and you know I can overthink this to the point where, you know, what if this is not right? What if this is not decision? What if we should make it a home thing? You know, just let it go, let it be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Live and let live.
Enjoy the experience. Enjoy it.
And you know what? I always have to remind myself, like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, because if it wasn't, I wouldn't be here. And you know, right in this moment, doing this is exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Well, we love you. I love you. You guys are great. We're excited.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. Honestly, it's
this was great.
Yeah, it was fun. I probably spoke a little too much.
No, well, it's tough too, because like you're doing a podcast. It's like an intimate setting. I'm going to put it out there, and people are going to judge,
right?
Because that's what they do. I can't only imagine like what people say about me. It's like whatever. Who gives a fuck?
Well, that's at the end of the day, really. You're not paying my bills.
No.
You know.
Here's what's important: your relationships that matter.
Yes.
Your career, your spiritual. I am big on my spiritual connection to the world.
Right.
Like I have a purpose. My wife loves me. My daughter loves me, and you have those people in your life that matter, and that's all I give a fuck about.
Right. And in the first time in my life, I'm happy. I feel a part of.
Yeah.
I have a family.
And it's authentic. It's true. It's genuine.
I come home and it's like a safe place. Mm-hmm. It's not chaotic. It's not unstable. And for a long time, I wanted to run from that. Like for this year, like it's been hard for me to accept that like things are good.
Yeah. And you deserve it.
Right. And I deserve it. And I had to remind myself that. And, you know, people are going to say what they're going to say. At the end of the day, though, like, it is what it is. Yeah. I used to hate that saying because I always wanted to change things. Mm-hmm. It is what it is.
Well, you know, like, I have a knack for, I totally, like, compartmentalize what I say on the podcast when I talk to people, like, at the gym. It's either the gym or work is where I'm at. You know what I mean? So I talk to people at the gym. Like, I don't even think about what I have said or what people have said to me on the podcast. Like, I just be myself. And that's the best I can fucking do.
No, I mean? Right? At the end of the day, you just be yourself.
That's it.
People who love you are going to love you, and people who are going to hate you. And you could be the ripest peach in the forest, and someone's going to come along and say, I fucking hate peaches.
Well, on that note, thank you. That was great. I appreciate this.
Of course. Love you.
All right. I love you too.
Bye.
Boom.
I guess I want to end it this way.
Love you, bro.
Yeah.
We love you, Dad.
I love all of you.
We love you, daughter.
I love you too.
That was nice.
And I tell you what, let's